She spent years trying to move on after the tragedy. When she finally found peace and decided to start anew with another man, the unexpected happened. On the day of her wedding, the past came knocking, with eyes she never forgot and a question that would change everything. Now, between old promises and a new life painstakingly built, she finds herself facing an impossible choice. Sometimes, the heart harbours secrets that not even time can erase. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The day promised to be perfect. The sky, a crystal blue, seemed like a canvas painted especially for Denise and Dominic's wedding. In the bride's room, the delicate lace dress lay on the bed, waiting to transform Denise into the radiant vision everyone anticipated. As her best friend Clara adjusted the veil in her hair, Denise looked at her own reflection. Her almond-shaped eyes revealed a mix of happiness and something deeper, an almost imperceptible shadow that only someone who knew her story could identify. "You look beautiful, Dee," Clara whispered, using the childhood nickname that few knew. "Dominic is going to be speechless." Denise smiled, touching the delicate pearl necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. "I never thought this day would come again," she confessed, her voice low as if sharing a secret. The words hung in the air. Again. It was a simple word that carried the full weight of her history. 2 years before, Denise had chosen another dress, planned another wedding, with Thomas, the man who had been her first love, her best friend since adolescence, and who disappeared without a trace during an adventure with his seaplane. Thomas always loved adventures, Denise once commented to Clara, while they organised his old photographs that she had finally had the courage to put away. It was as if he needed to always be in motion, always seeking something new. It was this restlessness that led him, along with his friend Patrick, to embark on that fateful journey. A Hydra motor trip that would end with a disappearance that shook the small community where they lived. In the weeks that followed, search teams combed through forests, lakes, and mountains. Posters with Thomas's smiling face were spread throughout the region. Denise abandoned her job as a physical therapist, dedicating every minute of the day to searching for any sign. "I know he's alive," she repeated stubbornly, even when the authorities began talking about calling off the search. "I would feel it if he had gone." But after 3 months, even Denise had to face reality. On a grey morning, she participated in a symbolic farewell ceremony. There was no body, only memories, and the engagement ring she held tightly, while silent tears ran down her face. On that day, something inside her died too. The Denise who smiled easily, who made plans for the future, who believed that life was fair. That Denise vanished along with Thomas. For months her routine consisted of waking up, going to work, which she had resumed at her parents' insistence, returning home and staring at old photographs. Food lost its flavour, movies lost their charm, conversations seemed to occur in a language she could no longer understand. It was when Clara, concerned about her friend's state, convinced her to join a support group for people who had lost loved ones. "You can't go on like this, Dee. Thomas wouldn't want to see you disappearing along with him." Reluctantly, Denise agreed. At the first meeting, she sat at the back of the room, avoiding eye contact with anyone. It was at that moment that Dominic entered her life, literally bumping into her while serving coffee to the participants. "I'm sorry," he said, as he tried to clean the spilled coffee on his shirt. His eyes, an intense green, seemed genuinely concerned. "It's all right," she responded automatically. "It's just a shirt." "No, it's not all right," he insisted. "Let me make it up to you somehow. A new coffee, perhaps, somewhere else, another time." It was the first genuine smile Denise had given in a long time. Dominic was nothing like Thomas. While Thomas was spontaneous and impulsive, Dominic was calm and thoughtful. Thomas loved adventures and risks. Dominic found pleasure in small moments, in quiet conversations, in walks through the park at dusk. At first, this bothered Denise. She felt guilty for being with someone so different from Thomas, as if it were a betrayal of his memory. But gradually, she realized it was exactly what she needed, someone to anchor her, to help her find beauty in the simplicity of everyday life. "You don't need to skydive to feel alive," Dominic once said as they watched the stars from her backyard. "Sometimes, it's in the quietest moments that we really connect with who we are." It took Denise 6 months to accept that she was falling in love again. Guilt still visited her occasionally, usually during sleepless nights, but Dominic's constant presence was like a balm for her wounded heart. On an autumn night, while dining at the small restaurant where they had their first official date, Dominic kneeled and asked for her hand in marriage. The ring was simple, with a single blue stone reminiscent of the colour of her eyes. "I know I carry a piece of your heart that will never belong to me," he said, his voice choked. "But I promise to cherish the part you have entrusted to me with all the love I have." With tears in her eyes, Denise accepted. Not because she had forgotten Thomas, that would never happen completely, but because she had learned that the heart has an incredible capacity to expand, to create new spaces for love without diminishing the love that already existed. And now, on her wedding day, as Clara adjusted the final details of her dress, Denise allowed herself a moment of reflection on her journey. From the depths of grief to the rebirth of love, she had travelled a difficult, yet transformative path. The sound of Clara's phone interrupted her thoughts. Her friend answered, and as she talked, her face started to lose colour. "Clara, what is it?" Denise asked, alarmed. Clara ended the call, her eyes fixed on Denise as if she were seeing a ghost. "It was from the Central Hospital," she said slowly. "Denise, they found Thomas. He's alive." Denise's world seemed to enter slow motion. Clara's words echoed in her mind as if they were coming from far away. Thomas. Alive. How is that possible? She finally managed to ask, her voice almost inaudible. "The plane crashed on a remote island. Thomas and his friend Patrick survived. A fishing boat found them yesterday. They just arrived at the hospital." Denise's legs gave way, and she sat on the edge of the bed, her wedding dress spreading around her like a white cloud. 1,000 thoughts crossed her mind in seconds. Thomas was alive. The man she loved had cried for, had mourned, was breathing, speaking, existing once again. And she was about to marry another man. "I need to see him," she declared, standing up with determination. "I need to be sure." Clara looked at the clock. "The ceremony starts in 3 hours, Dee." "I know, but I need to do this. Please, let Dominic know that I'll be a little late. Don't tell him the reason yet. I don't know how to deal with this." The hospital was only 20 minutes away from Denise's house. Throughout the journey, she tried to process the whirlwind of emotions that overwhelmed her. Joy that Thomas was alive, confusion about her own feelings, fear of what this return would mean for her relationship with Dominic. At the hospital, she was led to a room at the end of the corridor. Her heart was pounding so hard that it seemed it wanted to leap out of her chest. When the door opened, she saw him. Thomas was thinner, his skin tanned by constant sun exposure, and sporting a beard he had never worn before. But they were the same intense blue eyes, the same slightly crooked smile she knew so well. "Denise," he whispered, extending a trembling hand toward her. She hesitated at the door for a moment, as if she were facing an apparition. Then, slowly, she entered the room and approached the bed. "Thomas, is it really you?" He smiled, that smile which had filled her dreams and nightmares for 2 years. "In the flesh. A little less flesh than you remember, but still me." Denise couldn't hold back the tears. She sat on the edge of the bed and instinctively touched his face, feeling the texture of his beard under her fingers. It was real. He was there. How did you survive?" Thomas told his story. The plane had lost contact during a storm, crashing on an isolated island. He and Patrick managed to survive using their camping skills, living off fish, fruits and rainwater they collected. They built shelters and tried to create distress signals, but the island was off flight paths or shipping routes. There were days when we lost hope, Thomas confessed, but the memory of you, of us, is what kept me fighting. As he spoke, Denise noticed something on his hand. He still wore the engagement ring she had given him. I never took it off, he said, noticing her gaze. It was my connection to you, to our life together. It was what gave me strength in the hardest moments. A heavy silence settled between them. Finally, Thomas asked, "And you? How have these years been?" Denise felt as if she had a lump in her throat. How to explain that she had cried for months, that she felt as if a part of her had died, but that eventually, slowly, painfully, she had moved on. It was difficult, she began, choosing her words carefully. At first I refused to believe you had gone. Then when I had to accept it, it was as if my world had ended. Thomas squeezed her hand, encouraging her to continue. But then I met someone who helped me to start living again. She paused, gathering courage. Thomas, I'm getting married today. His eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and pain overtaking his face. Married? Today? Denise nodded, tears freely streaming down now. I didn't know. I never imagined. Who is he? Thomas asked, his voice now more contained. His name is Dominic. We met in a support group for people in mourning. He helped me rebuild my life when I thought it would be impossible. Thomas remained silent for a long moment, processing the information. Denise could see the internal struggle in his eyes, the pain of loss, the confusion, perhaps even a spark of anger. But then something changed in his expression. A resigned acceptance replaced the initial pain. Do you love him? He finally asked. Denise hesitated for just a moment. Yes, in a different way, but yes, I love him. Thomas nodded slowly. I understand. 2 years is a long time. You've moved on as you should have. Thomas, No, it's okay, really. He tried to smile, but couldn't completely hide the pain. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Don't make any decisions today. Give yourself time to process all this, please. Denise looked at the clock. The ceremony would begin in less than an hour. Dozens of guests should already be arriving at the venue. Dominic was probably getting ready, eager to see her walk down the aisle. I need to go, she said, standing up. But I'll be back tomorrow, I promise. Thomas held her hand one last time. I will wait. I have experience waiting for you. The journey home was a blur. Denise barely registered the path, her mind a storm of conflicting thoughts. When she arrived, Clara was waiting anxiously. How did it go? Is it really him? Yes, it's him. He survived all these years on an island. And now? What are you going to do? Denise closed her eyes for a moment, trying to find clarity amidst the chaos of her feelings. I need to talk to Dominic. She found him in the small office of the house they had bought together 6 months earlier. He was already dressed for the wedding, elegant in his dark suit. When he saw her enter, his face lit up with a smile that quickly turned into concern as he noticed her expression. Denise, what happened? She sat beside him, taking his hands in hers. Dominic, something happened. Something I never imagined could be possible. With a trembling voice, she told him about Thomas, about how he had survived, about their meeting in the hospital. As she spoke, she carefully watched her fiancé's face, seeing the succession of emotions that crossed it: surprise, confusion, fear, and finally, a deep sadness. I understand, he said when she finished. So, you were going back to him? It wasn't a question but a statement laden with resignation. "I don't know what to do," confessed Denise. "I am completely lost." Dominic took a deep breath, visibly trying to maintain his composure. "Denise, I love you more than I ever thought possible to love someone. These past 2 years with you have been the happiest of my life." He paused, as if each word required immense effort. "But I always knew that a part of your heart belonged to him, and now he's back." "It's not that simple," protested Denise. "My feelings for you are real. They are deep." "I know, and that's why this is so hard." He held her face in his hands, looking into her eyes. "Now you will have to choose between the two of us." The words hung in the air between them, heavy as lead. Denise felt hot tears streaming down her face. "How can I choose? How can I decide between two men I love in such different ways?" "By following your heart," Dominic replied, his voice soft despite the obvious pain. "And whatever your choice is, know that I loved you with all that I am." Denise spent the following hours in deep reflection. The guests were informed that the wedding would be postponed with no further explanations. She withdrew to a small cabin in the mountains, a place she used to go when she needed peace and clarity. There, far from everything and everyone, she revisited every moment with Thomas, her love story since adolescence, the plans they made together, the devastating pain of his loss. Then she mentally walked through her journey with Dominic, how he helped her rebuild her life piece by piece, how she learned to love again, how she found comfort and security in his calm and constant love. On the 3rd day of her seclusion, Denise finally understood what her heart was trying to tell her. It wasn't about choosing between the past and the present, between a first love and a second. It was about recognizing who she had become over these 2 years, and who she wanted to be from now on. When she returned, she visited Thomas first. She found him already regaining his strength, more like the man she had known. They sat in the hospital garden under an autumn sky. "I've made my decision," she said, her voice calm and firm. Thomas nodded, his eyes fixed on hers. "And what is it?" "I'm going to marry Dominic," she replied, observing how the words affected the man in front of her. "Not because I stopped loving you, Thomas. A part of me will always love you, but because over these 2 years I have become another person. And that person found in Dominic something she needs, something that completes her in a way she didn't expect was possible." Thomas remained silent for a long moment, digesting her words. Finally, with a deep sigh, he took her hands in his. "I understand, and I respect your choice. Know that I am grateful for having had you in my life, and I wish for your happiness above all else." They talked for hours, sharing stories from the 2 years apart, laughing and crying together. When they said goodbye, it was with a long and tight hug, a farewell to what might have been, but also a celebration of what was. A week later, Denise walked down the aisle of a small chapel, wearing a simple silk dress. Dominic waited for her at the altar, his face beaming with love and gratitude. When they exchanged vows, there were no doubts in their hearts, only the calm certainty of 2 people who had consciously chosen to love each other, despite all complexities and challenges. Thomas watched the ceremony from the back of the chapel. When his eyes met Denise's, there was a moment of silent recognition, of a love that would always exist in a special space, preserved by time and distance. With a small wave, he bid farewell, letting her go on her way with the man who had won her heart when she believed it would no longer be possible. That night, at her wedding reception under the stars, Denise danced in her husband's arms, feeling complete for the first time in a long while. Not because she had forgotten or diminished what she had lived with Thomas, but because she had learned the most important of lessons, that the human heart has an infinite capacity to love, to heal, to start anew. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is allowing oneself to embrace the future, even when the past returns to remind us of what we have lost. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.